There have been some disturbing things washing up on our beaches recently. Some say they are beasts from the deep, others say they are aliens from another planet. But it begs the question, how well do we really know our oceans? In October 2024, beachgoer Vicki Evans was taking a stroll along Horseshoe Bay in Port Elliott, South Australia. She was minding her own business, looking out at the sea and smiling at her little dog trotting in front of her when she spotted something in the distance. It was something large that had clearly been washed up on the shore.
Hit like and subscribe. This is Fierce.
There, lying on the ground, was some kind of alien. It was like nothing she had ever seen before. Her dog sniffed it. The alien didn't move. Cautiously, Vicki prodded it with her foot. Still no movement. Then she squatted down beside it and inspected it closer. The object was several feet long and covered in some marine-like hair. Each strand of this so-called hair was about the thickness of Vicki's finger, and on the end of each strand was something gray, oval-shaped, like a shell. Vicki couldn't make sense of it. This wasn't anything man-made. It wasn't something from a shipwreck. Then Vicki jumped. This thing lying on the sand in front of her was alive. The hair-like protrusions began to move. They looked almost jelly-like, stretching and recoiling, wriggling and writhing. And the shells dangling on the end waved along with them. Vicki took a step backwards. What exactly had she discovered? It was time to find out. Vicki took a photograph of the strange object and posted it to her social media to try and get some answers. Although most people described the discovery as freaky and offered little insight, marine ecologist Dr. Zoe Doubleday knew exactly what it was, but she was surprised all the same. The alien-like creature washed ashore wasn't a single animal. It was in fact millions of animals called gooseneck barnacles. In some parts of the world, these crustaceans are considered a delicacy and come with a high price tag. The long necks of the barnacles, the feature that Vicki had thought looked like some kind of thick hair, are the fleshy parts that can be consumed. They attach to hard surfaces, just like regular barnacles, in the intertidal zone. They are filter feeders, sifting through the seawater to extract the nutrition they need. But this particular cluster of barnacles found by Vicki was exceptional. It was huge, made up of likely millions of gooseneck barnacles. The object they were all clinging to was probably an old pylon from a jetty or some piece of marine infrastructure that had been floating in the sea for months on end. It was impossible to see exactly what they were all attached to, as there were so many of them. Vicki's mystery discovery had been resolved, but others have found equally perplexing things washed ashore. Recently, yet another beachgoer in the UK, 72-year-old Marilyn Inglis, stumbled across something out of the ordinary. It was a peculiar mass on Littlehampton Beach in Sussex. It was gray in color and a very odd shape. It didn't quite look like a fish, nor like some kind of marine reptile. In fact, it looked extraterrestrial with spines down its back, a see-through head, and a whip-like tail. There was no telling what this creature was. It appeared to have two holes on the top of its head, and where it lay in the sand, it looked as though it was half buried. Whatever it was clearly dead, but where it had come from, Marilyn didn't know. Marilyn didn't want to touch it. There are plenty of venomous and poisonous sea creatures, and it wasn't worth the risk. So, instead, she took a photo of the gray blob and showed it to the RSPCA. But officers there had never seen anything like it. There was a chance that this was a deep sea fish of some sort. It could be amongst the species that live in the bathypelagic zone, like the strange and sinister-looking anglerfish, the fangtooth, or the gulper eel. These species are rarely seen by humans, and if it weren't for marine biology research, we would never know they exist, as they rarely wash ashore. Could something have happened to disturb this creature from the depths? Despite its unusual appearance, researchers at the Marine Conservation Society were able to provide some insight into what the strange-looking beast could be. They thought that it was some kind of ray, and, judging by the mottled skin coloration, the spiny back and whip-like tail, was probably a thornback ray. but the shape of it was throwing even the most experienced marine experts off. Could this be a new species? Something that had lain hidden in the deepest, darkest depths of our oceans until now? Was this a prehistoric creature that had lived during the time of Megalodon? Probably not. Those at the Marine Conservation Society suggested that this thornback ray had been fished and had had its wings, the fleshy part of the body, cut off. It had then been tossed back into the water and washed ashore sometime later. This seemed a plausible conclusion and explained why the creature was such a strange shape and why it looked so otherworldly. It was the only explanation they could come up with. But the puzzling findings kept coming, this time in Laguna Niguel, California, in October 2024. Something lay in the surf. It was almost 5 feet long, a snake-like creature with a terrifying face. It was the color of a corpse, pale and almost white. It had tiny eyes on its rounded head. It was clearly dead, but it wasn't clear what it was. Once again, the beachgoer got a shock when they stumbled upon this mysterious creature, and ever since they have been having nightmares. The animal lay lifeless, the waves washing over its long, slender body. Its eyes were fixed in an icy glare, and its mouth was open, displaying a horrifying sight. Set in its immense jaws was a double row of sharp, pointed, backwards-facing teeth. These needle-sharp teeth were designed to stop anything from getting away once it had latched onto it, like the barb on a fisherman's hook. But what or who was on this creature's menu? The beachgoer took to social media to ask what they had found. It wasn't long before experts and the general public alike offered their opinion, and to some, it was as clear as day. What the person had found wasn't something out of a horror movie, but was instead a moray eel. These eels frequent the shores off California. They are found in shallow waters, along continental shelves, and also in the darkness of the deep benthic and mesopelagic zones. Typically, moray eels are greenish-brown in color, but this one had been bleached from being dead for so long. Although this washed-up specimen wasn't the terrifying creature some believed it to be, moray eels do have a terrifying set of features that make them deadly. They will often skulk in dark cracks and crevices, only their snouts protruding, waiting for unsuspecting prey to pass by. Their mouths are constantly gaping open and closed. They also contain a toxic mix of bacteria that can cause any bite wound to become infected. But people don't have to worry about moray eels. They prey on the likes of small reef fishes, shrimps, octopuses, crabs, sea urchins, and lobsters. Not people. Whilst these findings washed up on beaches around the world spark our interest in, and perhaps a little bit of fear of, the marine world, there are so many species in the deepest, darkest parts of our oceans yet to be discovered. And some of the creatures that we know already live there look like they belong to another planet. So it is perhaps unsurprising that we jump out of our skins when something unusual washes ashore, as we are less familiar with life in the oceans than we are with life on land.